Well, I think as I said in a prior recording, in 2003, I decided to get out of newspapers. I was in a managing editor position and decided to go back to school. And I spent 2 years getting a teaching certificate. Um, and while I was student teaching my last semester, a position came up in the College of Ag and Natural Resources in the communications office. And I always liked the University of Wyoming. When I was living in Wyoming, it's my third time. I always thought it'd be a great place to work. Um, anyway, I interviewed and along with about 50 others, and against their better judgment, I'm sure they hired me. That was in 2005. And one of the things that Ashley wanted me to talk about is one of the products that we put out. It's called Barnyards and Backyards Magazine. It's rather unique, and as we go along here, I'll be able to talk a little bit more about it. It started the same year I did. In fact, it's a quarterly magazine, and I've worked on every one except the initial, the very first one. So we're coming up on more than 15 years of it now, and it has evolved, as you can imagine, and it's unique. I'll get into that a little bit later. But before we get into it, I can see that I'm getting a lot of reflections off my glasses here. I apologize for that light coming in the window. Um, every semester, I'm asked, at least two times, 2 or 3 times, to talk to either senior students or graduate students about writing science for the lay media. And since we're talking about academia and my experience in academia, I, uh, I always show this slide to the graduate students and to the undergrads. I think some of the faculty should look at it too. And I don't want to come down on the faculty. They are um, they're specialists in what they do, and they've been trained for. I mean, if you're a full-fledged professor, I'm sorry, you've been at this 15, 20 years just to get your tenure. I mean, after you started college, so they work hard, but they are trained to write in a certain way. And it's very difficult then to switch focus, if you will, and write for the lay media. Anyway, this is from Steven Pinker. Let you read it, or you can pause the presentation at any time. But I think the point that he gets across, and I know the point he gets across, is don't assume that your audience isn't very bright. They just don't know what you know, and your job is to try and get that information across to them. Anyway, it's something that I show the students, and after they do some writing, and at least in the presentations when I give it to them face to face, and again I wish that we were face to face, you can see that they really do try and change how they write. Now with me, when I came to University of Wyoming to get my master's in communication, it was very difficult for me to turn around and switch from my writing for the lay public to then writing the way academia does. Very difficult, very difficult. But lucky for me, I had a great advisor, graduate advisor, that was patient and helped me out. Anyway, I like what this has to say. I put this slide up just to show you the different kinds of editing that we do, the variety that we do. We do the publications for the UW audience, which we'll use the various style guides for. We do the magazines and articles for the lay public, for the Associated Press, for state and regional news media. We also now do the editing of the social media posts. And I think that you'll find this too if you're good at what you do or if people trust you. You're going to be called upon to do all kinds of editing jobs. The dean, the various administrators, somebody who's writing something for a publication, a national publication or regional, whatever. And they just ask if they could run a manuscript. Excuse me, I use the word manuscript. If they could run the article by you just to get your opinion, you can help clean up. It's a nice compliment when they do that because it shows that they trust what you do and they respect what you do. Anyway, that's the types of things that we do in our particular office. Well, when the nation started turning away from coal for an energy source, our royalties from the mineral taxes went away too, and the UW convulsed, and a lot of changes were made. A lot of people left. A lot of programs were cut. And one of the things that we were asked to do was to reduce the number of our print publications. We had several off the top of my head. I can't remember how many we did. This particular magazine was Connect, and it was feature stories about how our extension educators connect with the people in Wyoming. That went away. We are currently down to two hard copy publications. One is Reflections magazine, which is our college's research magazine, and the second one is the Barnyards and Backyards magazine, produced for a lay audience. And we're going to get into that in just a second. Well, this is the magazine that actually wanted me to talk about. It's the Barnyards and Backyards magazine. It's published 4 times a year. It was started in 2005. I've been involved in every edition except the very first one. And it's improved over the years, obviously, as people got used to the mission, if you will, what we wanted to do, and began to learn how to write for the magazine and for its intended audience. And its intended audience is the small acreage owners in Wyoming. Back in 2005, when this magazine started, the fastest growing land parcel being purchased in Wyoming were small acreages. And people were moving out in the country, and they had no idea how to deal with some of the problems that they would end up dealing with. Weeds, pesticides, water issues, septic systems, finances, just all kinds of issues. Brandon, one of our faculty members coming into the college building last week prior to the university being shut down, said the wind was blowing 70 miles an hour out at his place. I don't know what the takeoff speed of the old Piper Cub airplane was, but it had to be pretty darn close. Anyway, people who are on campus and living in Laramie, you know what it can be like. So this magazine was started to help the landowners out there. What's unique about it is the overall size or the scope of the people involved. There's probably 16 to 20. And as you can see on the screen, we've got 7 partners, private and 6 governmental, 3 levels of government, and sometimes we'll even throw city in there too. Now, what am I talking about in terms of the government? On the national level, we got the Bureau of Land Management. We have the U.S. Forest Service, for example, the USDA, state-wise, the Wyoming Game and Fish Department, for example, county-wise. Every county has a weed and pest control district. And county commissioners, and just county regulations. There's just all kinds of people working together. Now, I believe that if you were to put all those people in a room without a mission, that they wouldn't go in the same direction, because they answer to different responsibilities. They don't have the same mission. But it's a testament to the people who put this magazine together, the small acreage issue group that has a coordinator, that they are able to get people herded in the same direction and be motivated to put away any possible division of lines, boundaries, and put the best foot forward for the intended audience, again, small acreage owner. I want to talk about the process of how this is put together. It's a long process. I've never dealt with anything like this before, just in the length of time. This is the fall edition. We probably started on that midsummer, if not earlier, perhaps even in June. We started getting magazine articles in. What happens is the small acreage issue group asks certain members to write certain stories. They write the stories. The coordinator then sends it into me. I'll go over them, making suggestions, at least what I think should be done. You got to remember, the people who are on these small acreage issue team and the levels of government and organizations are not professional writers, most of them. So when we get the articles in, we try and put it in again into a way or a format for a lay audience. Now, most of the time, I can't think of one time I've ever had anybody get uptight with me, upset with me about something I had done to one of their stories. And I think a lot of it is the way you approach people. You can suggest things instead of telling them how to do things, or you will do things this way. Most of these people I've worked with now for 12, 14 years, we have a good working relationship, and when new ones come on, I handle them the same way. It helps build a good relationship. Anyway, the stories will come into me. I'll look them over. I'll edit. I'll do any formatting that I need to do to get this into the format for the magazine. I'll send it back to the author, and at that point they can either tell me I'm all wet, go jump in the lake, or fly a kite, or, oh yeah, okay, thank you very much. Send it back to me. I'll go over them again. And the small acreage issue team has a story or an article review committee. And we use Google Docs for this, so we'll put them up. We have folders in Google Docs that I'll put them up into. That review team then will have like a week. There's probably about 8 people on that committee to go through, not edit, but just to make suggestions on how it could be written better. Now, I don't know the first thing about the molecular transfer of nutrients from roots into the soil and all the bacteria and so on that make up the soil. So I leave that stuff up to the experts. I'm more on the writing end, how we can get that across in a way that's understandable to the lay public. So after they go through their review, the coordinator will take down the articles and then send them back to me. I'll go over them one more time. And after I'm done, we then put these up into, we use Dropbox for the design and printing. I'll put them up in the Dropbox folder. The graphic designer then does her thing, does an excellent job at it. We're just blessed. I've never worked in an office where I've been surrounded by so much talent. It's wonderful. It's wonderful. It's great. She put it together, print out a proof for me and the coordinator to go over. We'll make any changes that need to be made. Give it back to the graphic designer. She sends it to the printer. The printer sends us back a printer proof. We'll look at it, make any changes that need to be done, and boom, it's done. But it's a long, cumbersome process because you got so many people involved. I bet you on every single issue in my little corner of the world, just on this publication, I'll probably have 150 to 200 emails going back and forth between authors, coordinators, and it just happens. But at the same time, I like having that level of communication. It's great to have. We try to bring at least a little bit of levity to the magazine. These are some of the author information paragraphs at the end of the story. They have the contact information and their position and who they're with. But again, we like to have just a little bit of fun. And as you read through this, I think the readers appreciate it. We've had comments coming from people about it. I've never had a position where I just did writing or I just did editing or I just did photography. Ours is a smaller office. We only have maybe 5 to 6. During the lean times, we were down to 4, and during the flush times, we were up to 8. But I just don't do copy editing or writing or social media. I also do photography. This was the Bronze Boot Exchange back in November at the border. I brought this photo up because I haven't said, or I don't believe I've explained that we take care of all the needs of the College of Agriculture and Natural Resources, all of the University of Wyoming Extension, which has offices in every county in Wyoming. And we also take care of what's called the Wyoming Agricultural Experiment Station, which is a misnomer because it's called a station, but their head office is in the College of Ag building. And they have 4 research and extension centers around the state. Anyway, we also take care of them. These are the draft horses of the college. They're Pistol and Pete. And they were helping take the Bronze Boot across the border from Colorado into Wyoming. And I think you can see in the back there, you might see somebody, he's with the National Guard. Anyway, it's a cold time. Well, this is the second of the 2 tips. And I apologize if they're elemental to you folks, but I really see in the writing the 2 ways that you can just immediately have an impact on someone's writing. That is, change passive to active writing. And then for me, it's getting rid of lead-in phrases because commas act as a speed bump to the reader. And you just automatically pause. In the course of one day, she drinks 1 cup of coffee. Well, to get rid of that, she drinks 1 cup of coffee a day. You get right to the point, it reads smoother, and you have less words. And then if a tree falls in the forest, comma, there must be sound. There must be sound if a tree falls in the forest. Anyway, it's just a simple way to make the language or the reading, the voice in people's head be smooth, quick, and to the point. So now we have the examples on the prior slide. You do it. change these sentences around to get rid of those lead-in phrases. See how much clearer and cleaner the language is and how much easier it is to read. Anyway, have at it. Good luck. Again, I wish that I was in front of you live or you in front of me live. I would have gladly had accepted a lot of questions, and I would have had a lot of questions for you too. And good luck in your editing.